the Unfiltered Trainer. I am your host, Gina, aka Gina Marie Fit, and it is 2024, and we've got a lot to unpack. So this is that typical time of the year where all of those social media fitness coaches are going to start their new year, new you nonsense. And y'all, we are not about that life here at the Unfiltered Trainer because we embrace all that we are, all that we've been through, and all that we are going to become. So that means there's no reason to create a new version of the person you are. All we are going to do is set the tone for our year by building on what we've already accomplished and making sure that we strive for greatness in all that we do without negating everything we've been through. And so today is going to be one of our health and fitness episodes. We're going to talk all about cutting versus bulking, setting those fitness expectations, and where exactly your focus should be. And something that can get really complicated, really easy, is the concept of cutting versus bulking. And so today we're going to break everything down, give you the familiarity of the basics, and then we will kind of give you a little synopsis of how to know what is right for you. And then I will give you the disclaimer, I am not about to teach you though, how to do your caloric intake. I'm a big believer on utilizing the dietetic equations and following a specific format that you should adhere to no matter what your goals are. And so when I give clients macros, it is something that is a very personal experience between the coach and the client. And it's not something that should be handled lightly. You can really mess somebody up if you're giving them the wrong macros. And we're going to talk about that today. And so let's get familiar with the basics. What is cutting, what is bulking, and then we'll break it down from there. So bulking is intentionally eating more calories with the goal to increase your muscle mass. And so you're focused on that caloric surplus. It's something that you're going to do for a period of time. You're eating to fuel your muscle growth, and you're really focusing on muscle mass. And then you have the concept of cutting, or you'll hear people say shredding, which is when you're intentionally eating fewer calories than you burn to lose that mass, specifically fat. And you want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible to have that shredded look. So you have a caloric deficit, your focus is on shedding fat, you're trying to lose that fat over a period of time. You can decrease your results very easily and hit a plateau if your caloric intake is too low. And so something that always scares me working with new clients is when they tell me that they're only eating like 1,200, 1,400 calories, and then they want to go into a cut. And so that is usually where I hit the brakes, put a pause on everything, and have an open, honest conversation with them about their intake. For some people like myself, I have a history of restrictive eating, so there could be personal reasons why we think we should be eating in that low. Some people don't even realize that they're eating that low because they don't track. And when they start tracking, they see how exceptionally low that is, which makes sense of why they have brain fog, why they're fatigued, why they don't have energy, why their workouts are lacking. And so you have to be really careful when you put somebody into a cut that they have a sufficient amount of calories to start. And then a big thing is there are slight adjustments in your exercise program when you're cutting. And so whether you're deciding this year to start with a cut or a bulk, you really have to focus on the fact that there is so much science that goes into this. You need to have the proper calculations throughout. You have to be adhering to a very specific exercise program so that your efforts are warranted. And there has to be a lot of thought, planning, and you have to be ready to dedicate a specific amount of time to those goals. And so you have to realize whether you're doing a cut or a bulk, you're going to be doing this for a period of time. So if you're somebody that gets easily bored, realize in 1 week, you are not going to achieve your goals. I always tell my clients, I know you're so focused on trying to achieve a certain outcome. For example, losing weight. Think about how long it took you to get to the position of needing to make that transformation, needing to make that change. realize how much time has passed, and understand that it is going to take a sufficient amount of time to progress to the goals that you've sought out to achieve. And so the first thing when you're trying to decide whether you should go into a cut or go into a bulk is, what are your goals? If you're going to bulk, you have to be ready to understand that you are going to increase your weight training. You're going to be decreasing your cardio because you're trying to feed your body for success and have a specific set goal and understanding that we're increasing mass. If you cut, it's slight reverse. You're going to increase your reps. You're going to increase your cardio. And then you don't want to severely drop your weight selection, because then you have the potential of gaining fat instead of losing fat and maintaining that lean muscle. And so you have to really be careful. It's a fine line when you start during a cut about how you start to make that progress to focus on that caloric deficit. And so when you're in a bulk, you have to understand that you're going to be eating a surplus of calories. Focus on your main macros, your fat, your carbs, and your protein. When you're in a cut, you truly have to embrace a crucial discipline, because it's less calories than the body's burning, but you still have to keep your protein up. That way you replace your fat stores with lean muscle and don't hold on to that fat. The second thing you need to think about is your approach to this goal. And so I know a lot of people focus on the scale, but any good coach will tell you there's so much more than the scale that you need to focus on. And specifically here, when deciding what course of action you want to take, you really need to account for your body fat as well. Things you have to think about is that when you're decreasing your calories, you're decreasing your weight, you're going to have a decrease in muscle in the process. And so you really want to be careful about your protein, because muscle loss can increase your risk for injuries. It can increase weakness, fatigue, and it can lower your performance. And you want to be careful because there's that fine line of gaining fat versus gaining muscle. So you really have to focus on your approach and stay the course for that specific period of time, because if not, you could fall into something called weight cycling. And weight cycling can become really dangerous because it can affect your heart rate, your blood pressure, your glucose, your insulin, and your lipids. And it can really throw off your organ system functioning. And that is what happens specifically when people go into a cut, so that they're so focused on decreasing those calories, ladies, that you're not remembering that we have to have a certain amount of fat for our body systems to function properly, to do all of the things that are necessary for us to do. And so when you get into that severe caloric deficit, and then you're starting to still increase your activity level, you can really throw your body into a tailspin. Third thing I want you to focus on when making this decision is to think about the common mistakes that people kind of falter. A lot of people don't moderate their increase in calories with specific programming, and then as a result, they gain fat. It's very common. And when you gain a lot of fat, you'll increase your cholesterol and you can offset your blood sugar, which again, you want to have optimal organ system functioning. You don't want to do this to achieve this physique goal and then you pay for it in the long run. Also, a lot of times when people are in a bulk, they don't eat enough. You're slowly increasing your calories, but getting to that protein goal that you need to build muscle can be extremely difficult. I haven't talked about it yet in an episode. One day we'll do a GI gut health episode for sure. But 10 years ago, I got diagnosed with severe and progressive IBS-C. And something that I worked with a coach before, and I told them this, and they didn't, what I learned, sadly, understand, was that you can't give somebody that's eating fewer calories than they're supposed to this specified protein goal and be like, all right, wipe your hands clean and go off. Somebody like myself who has a condition can't just increase their protein. When I followed her protocol to a T, I messed my GI system up so badly because I can't break food down at the normal rate of a regular human being. And so you really need to get to know trainers, your clients, your goals. If you're not asking them about medical conditions, responses to food, medication, and their health history, you're really doing them a disservice because you don't know what they've been through or may have. And then you hand them this black and white protocol and it seems fine. And then things start to change. And this coach did not listen to me. And I kept saying, hey, I feel like this. Hey, I look pregnant. And then I finally took a photo and showed her. And that was my end of working with her because she clearly wasn't receptive to catering programs to that specific person. And so something like, just disclaimer, and I don't want to get off on a tangent about this, but I totally could, is that that's the one thing that upsets me about social media is they're not qualified people always. And so you might see somebody with a ton of followers who might claim to have programs and workouts and all of these fancy things. If you don't see their credentials, you better be careful because not everybody knows how to properly program. Just because somebody has a bunch of followers doesn't make them a good coach. Somebody could have 300 followers and be the best coach in the world, but because you're so focused on follower count and worth, you're missing the person that could actually change your life. And then you're just following somebody to be part of the trend, and they don't know, and you don't know if it's going to be the right match until sometimes it can be too late because you're thrown into one of these groups and then you're not getting that individualized one-on-one experience. And you could end up like me having to reset after a quote unquote coach gave you a protocol. 4, you really have to think about the nutrition side of cutting versus bulking. So when you're eating, what's super important, and this is specifically for cutting versus bulking, not for lifestyle, intuitive eating. This is for these two specific goals. The main difference between cutting and bulking is how much you're eating and what you should be eating. And so you have to be in that mindset, whatever you're going to do, that we're emphasizing highly nutrient dense foods in each phase of this. And so no matter what you're doing in that phase that you try to do, your specific focus should be on increasing nutrient dense foods. You want to have your healthy fats, your complex carbs, and your solid sources of protein. And you really want to have like a colorful plate is the easiest way to explain it. Fruits, vegetables, you need your micronutrients, you need your vitamins, you need your minerals. And my, oh my, do you need your fiber. As somebody with IBS-C, oh my God, I did not understand until I went through my GI doctor doing a food journal, and was I lacking in fiber. So you want to have foods that are nutrient dense because they help you to feel full. They optimize your function and they can improve your muscle growth. And so the foods you want to focus on in either phase are making sure you're drinking your water. You don't hear that enough. You always hear people talking about protein, protein, protein. You need to eat protein. We get it. You need to drink your water throughout the day because if you're increasing your protein and you're not increasing your water, my oh my, will you have trouble in the bathroom. So make sure that you're drinking your water. You're getting in those nice leafy greens, your spinach. You have your arugula. Yes, kale. My arch nemesis kale, but it is good for you. Fruits and vegetables, things like apples, oranges, bananas, berries. Oh my God, pineapple, love it so much. I can't get enough of it. Veggies wise, things like asparagus, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, zucchini, broccoli. All of those are things that can be easily paired for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You can definitely find good sources in protein in things like legumes, your black beans, your lentils, your chickpeas. Favorite complex carbs are always the things like sweet potatoes, quinoa, brown rice, oats. If you're a baddie and can eat oats, my oh my. Something I've tried so much in my journey, and this is just like a little funny side story, is oatmeal. I want to love it because I know it's good for you and it stays with you for so long, but I just gag every single time. So if you have a recipe for oatmeal that does not involve dairy, please DM me because I want to get on the oatmeal train, but I just cannot tolerate the texture. When it comes to healthy fats, you want to think like your olive oil, your nut butters. Oh my God, peanut butter, my jam. You can even like focus on like fatty fish, good source of protein, but a good source of healthy fats. And then your protein rich foods, you got your eggs, your beef, your chicken, your fish, your pork. For those that don't eat animal proteins, you've got tofu, tempeh, Greek yogurt, and even some cheeses. You got to be mindful of how much dairy you consume for a lot of reasons. And then you always have that option to supplement with protein powder. Now, I hope you heard what I just said. Supplement with protein powder. It is not a means to replace your entire food. Your main sources of food should not come from supplemental processed goods from GNC or Vitamin Shop. Love those places, but too often you see people literally replacing meals with those things. They're meant to aid in your nutrient-dense consumption. And so if you're lacking, that is what a supplement is for. It's to add to it. It's not to be your main source of nutrition. Things that you have to be mindful of when you're doing a cut or a bulk are processed foods, and then your added sugars that you get in your soft drinks, your coffees, your candy. We all know everything Gina loves to eat on a regular basis. We all know that is the world I come from. And so if you're wondering if some of the foods that you're eating don't qualify as nutrient dense, you got to focus on the fact that you set out to achieve this goal. And so things will have to be modified and adjusted. And then lastly, number 5, the pros and cons of bulking and cutting can be pretty lengthy, to be quite honest. And so we're kind of going to go through a little bit of a pro, a little bit of a con for each one. And so benefits of bulking, obviously increasing muscle gain. That will aid in increasing your strength. Weight-bearing activities are fantastic for bone density, which all of us are aging every single day. It's a natural, beautiful thing about life. If you're one of these people that is so stuck on your age, please, please, please. The game that I love the most is people not understanding how old I am. And I always make people guess how old I am. And they're literally 5 to 10 years off every single time. Age is the number representative of when you were born. Your focus should not be on how old you are. It should be on the quality in the years that you have. And so think about that long-term, like your longevity to say, like long-term potential and the outcome you're facing as we are all getting older, and take care of yourself now so that your body will take care of you down the road. Also, things that are super important that are pros are the way you recover from exercise is a pro in bulking, because you can actually have more efficient recovery, and then you'll notice in a lot of areas in your life you'll have better performance. Things that are not necessarily great, your cons of bulking, is that yes, you can have excess fat gain. You can notice that as you're putting on muscle, your mobility and agility may be lacking. As you start to increase in your protein and increase in your calories, you may feel sluggish, fatigued. You may even feel that you'll notice that your blood levels can be affected if you're somebody that does routine blood work. And then if you have your insulin sensitivity, you can notice differences in your insulin and your blood glucose, all of the processing of your body. When it comes to cutting, pros, obviously promotes fat loss. It can improve your physical appearance of your muscle because you have that more shredded look. Your agility, you're increasing your cardio, that leanness, will notice that your agility can get better. Your blood work should show improvements in your blood levels. And then your insulin sensitivity should increase if you're making sure that you're following the nutrient-dense protocol. Now, things that can be associated as negatives, you're going to have a loss in muscle. You'll notice that you may not feel as athletic in your performance abilities. You may notice that, yes, you're going to have low energy. You will feel hungry. And at one point, that is going to happen. And you're going to have to try to embrace it because your body is changing. And we'll talk about the different types of when you hear people say they're doing dirty bulks and things after this. and why you don't necessarily want to participate in something like that. You have to be careful when you're in a cut because your bone density can decrease. And then you may notice in other areas of your personal life that you don't feel as energized and want to participate. So, little disclaimer, sidestep here. There is a concept of clean and dirty bulking. And it's something that people say to embrace if you want to continue to eat junk foods. Like if you do a dirty bulk and you still want to have those processed foods, you have to be very careful when you do things like this because it can really offset your insulin and your organ system functioning. So when you go into this, like I said in number 1, you really have to think about what your goals are. If you're not somebody that wants to specifically focus on a phase like this, that's okay. You don't need to do something like this. There are many other ways to get results and to change your nutrient-dense foods, the way you consume things, or your activity levels to elicit positive responses and changes in the body. These are just 2 main ways of hitting very specified goals that are very positive when done right. You just have to think, though, what you're truly trying to obtain and adhere to. Like, what is that desired outcome before you do something you necessarily don't want to do, and the outcome affects you a lot longer than that time frame you're supposed to be focused on for achieving that bulk or that cut. Now, let's start to talk about training and the frequency and duration of training. When you're in the bulking phase, it's all about increasing that muscle mass. And so in order to do that, you're going to have to train more often and for longer durations of time. And so when you have more frequent training sessions, you're obviously going to be spending more time at the gym. You're lifting heavier weights than you would in a cutting phase. You'll have more workouts per week. So instead of working out 3 times per week for an hour or so each time, you're likely going to be in the gym 4, 5, maybe even 6 times per week. And some of those sessions could be an hour and a half to 2 hours, which equates to a lot of time in your day. So you really, when I talked about like what are your goals and how we're going to approach it, it's important that you realize that not only you're going to have more time prepping in the kitchen, but you're also going to be spending more time training to elicit those goals. And so when you're working out, to increase that muscle mass and that frequency that's necessary for muscle growth, you're going to have more sets in your workout. And so you're lifting heavier throughout those workouts. It's important that you have sufficient rest breaks between your sets so that you can recover properly before you go into that next set of reps or that next exercise. And so your total number of reps might seem a little bit lower sometimes because it's spread out over a longer duration or different exercises, but you'll still get plenty of work done. Now, the intensity in that training. The main difference between cutting versus bulking is the intensity of your workouts. And so during a bulk, you're going to have more intense workouts focusing on compound lifts, deadlifts, chest presses, squats. And as a result, not only are you going to have these intense compound lifts that are so effective, but you're trying to increase your weight. You have to make sure you have the right correlation with your rep range. And so on those really heavy deadlifts, I'm not doing 12 or 15. I'm usually doing 6 to 8 or 4 to 6. So if you're somebody that's used to doing 15 reps with your chest press, then you're going to have to realize that as you're increasing that weight, your reps are going to go down. This is the approach that will elicit the most amount of muscle mass gain, but you're still going to be able to focus on burning fat because of that nutrient-dense fuel and that progression of those weight selections. And so something to think about is the volume in your workouts per week. And so as we're in this bulking phase, you're obviously lifting weights with an increase in volume. And so that means more sets and more reps of that specific exercise during that week, which again, as we talked about earlier, means more time in the gym. And so not only are you lifting heavier and you're going to need extra rest between your sets, you have to make sure that your muscles are sufficiently recovering from all the strain you're putting on them. As great as workouts are, it is a stress to the body. It is something that increases our cortisol levels. And so recovery is something that is not utilized enough, but is super important for the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And so you have to be mindful as you're increasing your frequency that you're paying attention to how quickly you fatigue, and that are you getting quality every single time with every single reps? Are you half-assing it to hit that heavier weight because you're so tired or sore that you can't get through that proper set? And that's where you got to walk that fine line of fatigue and working out, because this is where you can increase your risk for injuries when you're working out. And so a couple differences that exist between bulking and cutting with your intake and your workout frequency is that in your bulk workouts, higher volume of sets, moderate to high reps. And then with each exercise, you have those longer rest periods. And so the reverse is when you're cutting, you have a more intense workout, but at a lower volume. And so fewer sets, heavier weights, less reps in between. So you might have 1 to 2 minutes between your bulking phase and only 30 to 60 seconds in your cutting phase. And so you have to be mindful that that nutrient dense intake is sufficient and aligns with those goals that you're trying to achieve when you're training to hit a cut or bulk phase. At the end of the day, whether you're cutting or bulking, your goal should always be to maintain as much muscle mass as possible, because even if you're cutting, you want lean muscle. And if you're bulking, you're trying to increase the muscle mass. And so this can be achieved simply by that duration of sets, reps, the frequency in your workouts, and then the nutrient-dense foods you're eating. And so something that is very popular when we have this conversation is this concept of toning. And I'm literally using quotes when I say that word, because toning isn't real. You can make a muscle smaller, you can make a muscle bigger, but you can't specifically tone certain muscle groups. And I feel like that is where a lot of people can sell a lot of programs and sell people on this concept of toning their body, or, oh, you can just grow your glutes, or, oh, you can do. No, your body cannot be spot specific. And so in order to maintain the most amount of muscle, you have to be mindful of your weight selections, your rep ranges, because you want your muscles to still contract and relax in a sufficient manner that you're recruiting all the necessary muscle fibers and motor units that are necessary to maintain that muscle. And so you have to think of it as you're trying to maintain muscle mass, which means you're trying to maintain your strength. And so when you're lifting heavier, especially if you're still keeping your weights relatively heavy during a caloric deficit when you're cutting, you're telling your body that you need your muscles to keep these lifts to maintain. But the result is your body is going to be less likely to break down those muscles for energy during a caloric excess. And so you really have to be specific in your programming and how you go into your training. And so something you want to be mindful of is that when you're cutting to aid in fat loss for increasing your ability to burn calories, is that you want to focus on your metabolism more. And so the best way and simplest way, I would say, is that you can be mindful of your decreased rest times, because that actually aids in your metabolism. So to make this make sense, if you're in a bulk and you're hitting your bench press, you're going 3, maybe 4 sets of that heavy weight, 4, 6, 8 reps. You have 1, 2, maybe even 3 minutes between those sets. Awesome for bulking. If you're trying to cut, the goal isn't to increase the muscle mass, but you want that boost in your metabolism to burn fat and elicit that lean muscle. And so you're going to decrease that rest time between your sets and your exercises so that your heart rate remains elevated for longer. That longer duration of that elevation is what helps you to tap into your metabolic energy systems and helps you to burn calories longer. And so you may limit that rest time, like we talked about, 30, 60 seconds, and then gradually reduce that time as you progress in your cutting phase. And so it's just important to note that you're gradually reducing your rest time so that your body is able to adjust and maintain in that phase for longer. So let's wrap this up. No matter what your health and fitness goal is, whether it's cutting, bulking, somewhere in between, everything worth having takes time. It requires a level of discipline that may not correlate with your initial expectations, which means you are going to have to adjust and strengthen your mindset. You have to go into this that it is a lifestyle change and it's not going to happen overnight. Don't do your body a disservice by trying to expedite results that shouldn't happen in that eliminated amount of time because you want to get to an end goal faster. We all have moments in our life, special events, reasoning behind why we want to look a certain way, your wedding, a vacation, all of those things. Most of the time, you know when those things are coming. So it's a great opportunity to reverse engineer those goals to healthily achieve that outcome and give yourself sufficient time so that you don't deplete your energy sources. And then once you hit that goal, you're not able to enjoy the outcome of all of your efforts. And so no matter what you're thinking about doing in 2024 with your health and fitness, I hope as you continue to listen to the Unfiltered Trainer that you go into it knowing that it's not just about diet, it's not just about calories, workouts, the calories you burn. It's not about what your Apple Watch says. It's a mind, body, soul experience, and it's always a lesson throughout the journey. Remember, we're not just focused on the outcome. We want to embrace everything in between. All right, y'all. I hope you found this informative. I hope you found this helpful. If you are looking for online coaching, that is something I do offer. So you can shoot me over a DM and we can go through and have a conversation about that. If you're also somebody that is looking for programming, but personalized coaching is not in your budget right now, I actually have a link in my bio that takes you to a 3, 4, or 5-day workout guide. That's a great way to kickstart your goals and get you back into the gym so you can feel comfortable and progress to achieving a more set specific goal. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned and we will chat soon.